For centuries, vampires had walked among humans, blending into the shadows of history's most chaotic periods. Their secret was not one of malevolence but survival. The world's myths had painted them as creatures of pure evil, but the truth was more complicated. The vampires had perfected the art of invisibility, not only hiding their physical presence but also weaving themselves into the world's institutions. With remarkable longevity and near indestructible resilience, they learned that staying out of sight meant staying alive. At the heart of this secretive world was Lucian, a vampire who had lived for over 1,000 years. His keen intellect and strategic mind made him the leader of their hidden society. From underground networks of abandoned cities and forgotten fortresses, Lucian kept his people safe. His authority was unchallenged, not because of fear, but because of his insight into humanity's evolving world. Lucian understood that as humanity advanced, so did the potential for the discovery of their kind. The vampire's existence was balanced on the fine edge of secrecy. They lived in every major city, from New York to Tokyo, camouflaging themselves among the elites and underworlds alike. Their kind was drawn to power and influence, not for domination, but as a way to shield their survival. Lucian's right hand, a fierce and battle-hardened vampire named Alaric, had fought wars in the shadows, erasing threats to their kind and eliminating any risk of exposure. Vampires possessed extraordinary abilities, far beyond the legends humans had written about them. Their speed was unparalleled. They could move like whispers in the wind, striking before a breath could be drawn. Their strength made them deadly, able to tear through metal or stone with ease. But it was their intelligence and self-control that allowed them to thrive. For millennia, they refrained from mindless slaughter, feeding only when necessary, and erasing memories with a glance. They were the apex predators of Earth, yet no one knew they existed. For centuries, vampires avoided direct conflict with humanity, not out of fear, but out of prudence. Humanity, with its unpredictability and endless capacity for destruction, posed a potential risk that vampires had learned to respect. Lucian had long warned his kind that the greatest threat to their existence was not human ingenuity, but humanity's ceaseless need to conquer the unknown. And now, that unknown was staring at them from the stars. The first reports came from remote regions, UFO sightings, strange signals intercepted by Earth's satellites. Initially dismissed as human paranoia, Lucian had Alaric investigate. What he found was unsettling. Aliens were real, and they were coming. Lucian feared this would be the tipping point. Humanity, with all its technology and willpower, would eventually unite against the extraterrestrial invaders. But what worried Lucian more was the vampires' own exposure. If humans discovered them during the chaos of war, it could mean the end of their kind. The alien threat loomed closer, and Lucian's council debated their next steps. Many were content to let the humans face this new danger alone, confident that vampires could remain hidden in the aftermath. But Lucian was not so certain. He felt a deep unease in his bones. Something about this invasion was different. It wasn't merely a skirmish for resources. The aliens were studying Earth, and Lucian feared they would find more than they'd bargained for. As the tension in vampire society grew, Alaric voiced what many were thinking. We need to prepare for the worst. If these invaders threaten our secrecy, we cannot stay passive. Lucian nodded gravely. If they discover us, they will not understand what we are. They will see us as no different from the humans. The weight of that truth hung in the air like a silent omen. Lucian's mind raced with possibilities. Vampires had survived humanity by outwitting them, by remaining unseen and unknown. But the aliens, they would not make that distinction. If they mistook vampires for humans, they would face a force they could never have imagined. The storm was coming, and Lucian knew his people could not stay idle. The ancient balance between predator and prey, between vampire and human, was about to be shattered. The invaders from the stars, ignorant of the creatures lurking in the dark, would soon learn the consequences of their mistake. Lucian's eyes gleamed with a mix of resolve and trepidation. The time for waiting was over. The vampires would be forced to reveal their hand, not to humanity, but to a foe from beyond the stars. And when they did, it would be the aliens' turn to learn the true meaning of fear. The alien fleet approached Earth with an air of indifference. To them, this was just another primitive planet in the vast expanse of their conquests. Led by the ruthless warlord Zivak, they saw no challenge in subjugating Earth's inhabitants. From the bridge of his command ship, Zivak surveyed the blue orbs spinning beneath them. He had conquered hundreds of worlds before, each with their own species clinging to life, each one eventually bowing to his might. He expected nothing different from this one. Zivak's scouts had reported Earth's inhabitants to be a fragile species, barely capable of interstellar travel. Their technological prowess was laughable compared to the advanced weaponry of his fleet. However, the warlord did not plan on allowing them even a moment to organize. His method was swift: strike hard, strike fast, and leave no survivors. His fleet's sensors, however, had failed to differentiate between the humans and something far older and far more dangerous: the vampires. On Earth, Lucian's unease had grown. The invaders were no longer a distant threat. Their ships now filled the skies, and humanity was only beginning to realize the scale of the danger. But it was not humanity that the aliens would strike first. The alien fleet's scanners had detected unusual energy signatures beneath the surface of the Earth. These readings, centered on the ancient vampire strongholds hidden deep underground, were misinterpreted by the alien command. Believing these to be human military installations, Zivak ordered an immediate assault. The attack came swiftly and without warning. In the dead of night, alien ships descended upon one of the largest vampire sanctuaries, hidden beneath the mountains of Eastern Europe. Lucian had sensed their approach moments before the first strike. From his stronghold, he watched as beams of green energy rained down from the sky, vaporizing the landscape above. Stone and earth exploded, shaking the foundation of the sanctuary, but the vampires were not so easily destroyed. Alaric, battle-hardened and always ready for a fight, was the first to react. "They think we're human," he growled, watching the chaos unfold on the surface through the sanctuary's surveillance systems. The alien bombardment had triggered their emergency defenses, but the vampires were already moving, preparing for retaliation. Lucian's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. "Let them think so," he said coldly. "They have no idea what they've unleashed." The vampires moved with terrifying precision. Alaric led a team of warriors to the surface, where the alien ground forces had begun their descent. The creatures were tall, hulking beings, covered in dark armor that reflected the harsh light of their landing craft. They carried weapons of plasma and energy, designed to melt through the strongest of human defenses. But the vampires were no humans. In an instant, Alaric and his fighters were upon them. Moving faster than the aliens could register, the vampires tore through the first wave with brutal efficiency. The alien soldiers, accustomed to fighting slow, vulnerable species, were completely unprepared for the speed and strength of their adversaries. Alaric ripped the head from one alien commander with a single swift motion, his fangs bared in a grin of satisfaction. Around him, his warriors decimated the alien forces, their enhanced reflexes and savage power making quick work of the invaders. Zivak watched in confusion as his soldiers' life signals began disappearing from the monitors. The battle had just begun, yet the resistance they were facing was unlike anything they had encountered before. "What are these creatures?" Zivak growled, his multiple eyes narrowing as he watched the chaos unfold. "This isn't human behavior." As the ground forces crumbled, Lucian knew the aliens would soon realize their mistake. But the damage had been done. They had attacked his people, assuming them to be a weak and defenseless prey. Now they would pay the price. "Their arrogance will be their downfall," Lucian muttered, turning to Alaric as he returned from the battlefield, his armor stained with alien blood. "They came here thinking they could conquer humans, not knowing they were stepping into a world far more dangerous." Alaric wiped the blood from his hands, his eyes glowing with battle lust. "We should send them a message. Show them what we truly are." Lucian nodded, his mind already planning their next move. The aliens had made a fatal error. They had declared war on beings they did not understand, and now they would be forced to confront the full wrath of the vampires. This was no longer about survival. It was about vengeance. Let them fear us, Lucian said softly, a sinister smile curling at the edges of his lips. Soon they will wish they had never come to Earth. And with that, the vampires prepared for the next stage of the battle, knowing the aliens would come in greater force. But this time, they would be ready. The alien fleet hovered above Earth like a swarm of locusts, their vast ships casting long shadows over the world. From his command throne, Zivak seethed with fury. His initial strike had been repelled, and now his forces lay decimated, their plasma weapons scattered across the battlefield like broken toys. He had underestimated this world, not the humans, but the other, darker inhabitants who had risen to face him. Zivak would not make that mistake again. He dispatched his elite forces, warriors bred for war on the harshest worlds, creatures that had crushed entire civilizations. Wipe them out, he hissed through gritted teeth. Leave nothing standing. On the ground, Lucian stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching the alien reinforcements pour from their ships. Above him, their massive warships loomed, preparing for another bombardment. But this time, the vampires would not wait for the strike. Lucian's mind raced through centuries of warfare, recalling the tactics that had brought empires to their knees. Now, it was time to unleash the full power of his people. Alaric, gather the elders, Lucian commanded, his voice cold and steady. We end this now. Alaric nodded, vanishing into the shadows to summon the most ancient and powerful vampires. They were the true force behind their race's survival, beings who had lived through countless wars, each one a master of destruction. They had remained hidden for centuries, but the alien invasion had left them no choice but to emerge from the depths. The aliens, oblivious to the storm gathering below, continued their descent, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. They had no idea that what awaited them was not merely resistance, but annihilation. Lucian's forces, now bolstered by the arrival of the elders, were ready. As the alien elite forces landed, they found themselves surrounded. The vampires, invisible in the night, attacked with a ferocity the invaders had never encountered. The ground was a blur of motion as vampires struck faster than the aliens could react. The alien warriors, towering and armed with deadly energy weapons, were torn apart before they could fire a single shot. One by one, their bodies fell, lifeless and broken, as the vampires moved through them like a dark wind. Above, the alien ships began their bombardment, but Lucian had anticipated this. The vampire elders, each with ancient power flowing through their veins, raised their hands toward the sky. In a display of supernatural force, they created an impenetrable shield of energy that absorbed the alien fire. The bombardment that would have wiped out cities merely fizzled against the barrier, leaving the vampires unharmed. Zivak watched in disbelief. His forces were being crushed on the ground, and now even his fleet's bombardment was ineffective. This was no mere resistance, it was slaughter. His rage grew as he realized the magnitude of his error. He had come to conquer a primitive species, but instead, he had awakened a nightmare. Bring me to the surface, Zivak commanded, his voice trembling with fury. He would confront these creatures himself. As the alien warlord descended, Lucian stood waiting. The vampire leader could sense Zivak's approach, the pulsing anger of the alien a beacon in the chaos. Alaric joined him, his armor gleaming with the blood of their enemies. Zivak comes, Alaric growled. He won't be easy to kill. Lucian's eyes narrowed. No one is. Zivak landed with a thunderous crash, his massive form towering over the vampires. His armor gleamed with alien technology, and his multiple eyes glared down at Lucian with contempt. You think you can stand against me? He roared, drawing a blade forged from the cores of dead stars. I will burn your world to ash. Lucian stepped forward, unflinching. This world was never yours to conquer. The battle between the two leaders was swift and brutal. Zivak, with all his strength and fury, swung his blade with the force of a planet's destruction, but Lucian was faster. Dodging each strike with supernatural speed, Lucian struck with precision, his movements like the flow of water around stone. In mere moments, Zivak was on the defensive, his massive frame struggling to keep up with Lucian's relentless assault. The final blow came swiftly. Lucian, with a burst of speed, drove his hand through Zivak's chest, ripping out the alien warlord's heart. Zivak gasped, his many eyes wide with disbelief, before collapsing to the ground. His reign of terror ended in silence. With Zivak's death, the remaining alien forces faltered. Their leader destroyed, their will to fight crumbled. Above, the alien fleet began retreating, their once imposing warships now fleeing in panic. The vampires watched as the invaders abandoned their assault, the skies clearing as the ships disappeared into the void. Lucian stood over Zivak's lifeless body, his expression calm but resolute. Alaric approached, wiping blood from his blade. "Is it over?" Alaric asked. Lucian gazed at the stars. For now. The aliens had underestimated the true nature of Earth, mistaking vampires for fragile humans. In doing so, they had met their doom. But Lucian knew this was only the beginning. More threats would come, from the stars or from within. The vampires had revealed themselves to a force beyond Earth, and now they would be watched. But for tonight they had won. The night belonged to the vampires.